Welcome on the next episode of our BIM for Manufacturers session. On today's session, we will cover the topic of different BIM creation strategies for, I think, two most popular BIM platform, which is Revit and ArchiCAD. For those of you that are not familiar with our session, I definitely recommend you to check our website, bimstreamer.com. You can find the link within the chat window and navigate to the knowledge and to the webinar links where you can find the recordings from the previous session. And it's definitely worth checking that out because we've just released the recording from the previous session that we were hosting together with Francois Gears, where we were covering an aspects of eTeam and eTeamMC, of course, in the context of BIM and in the context of manufacturers. But let's get back to today's event and to our speakers. I would like to introduce you a person who was a BIM manager for several years, recently joined an AliAxis group as their head of the BIM department. And I invited this person because not sure whether you had a chance to read his recent article about the BIM content, which I had a pleasure to review. I found it quite I find it quite, let's say, it was some sort of a catharsis when it comes to explaining what the BIM content really is and how it should be prepared. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present you Mr. Rafał Mus from AliAxis. Hello, Rafał.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I'm happy to be here and share some of our insights. Of course, the goal of today of both me, Marcin, Grzegorz, and Adam is not to tell people if Revit or ArchiCAD is a better or worse, or whether you should be creating BIM content or not, and how to manage it. We're just going to discuss what are the different strategies, what are their pros and cons, and what kind of products are probably best suited for each of these strategies. So happy to be here today, and let's get to meet the other two people in the call today.
Yeah, actually, Rafał has already introduced them, at least partially by name. So our second guest will cover the aspect of ArchiCAD because Rafał will mostly focus on the aspect of the Revit platform, but we decided to also invite the person that is very well experienced when it comes to preparation of the BIM content for the graphics of the software for ArchiCAD. And in addition to that, he's also helping us to improve our support for the ArchiCAD file formats within the BIM Streamer projects. Ladies and gentlemen, please invite Mr. Grzegorz Wilk. Hello, Grzegorz.
Hello, guys. Hello, Marcin. Thank you for inviting me for this webinar. And I'm glad to be able to share some of my experience with creating BIM content. As you said, I specialize in ArchiCAD platform and creating GDL objects, and I'm honored and I would like to share this experience, some of the issues here with you today. So thank you once again, and let's carry on.
Yeah. So as usual. We have always trying to present you not only the knowledge but also the demo, and on this very special webinar you will see lots of demos because we are going to present 6 strategies, and as usual I invited a person that was responsible for preparing us these demos. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Adam Konca, project manager of the BIM Streamer project. Hello, Adam.
Hello, nice to meet you guys.
So let's get back to today's agenda. This webinar will be slightly different than the previous episodes because, as I mentioned before, within the previous episodes, we were mainly focusing on presenting you with the knowledge, which later on was summarized with the demo. Due to the fact that today we are planning to present you 6 different strategies for 2 platforms that gave us quite a lot of a challenge to prepare all the examples for you. That's why probably Adam is a bit more tired today than usual, and had quite a lot of work to complete with the all examples, but we managed to do that. So this webinar will actually be the complete demo throughout the whole period. So we will present each and every strategy. We'll show you the demo of that. Later on, our experts, Grzegorz and Rafał, will put more light on the topics related with pros, cons, and which strategy works best for which types of products. But speaking about the strategy, I think that the best way is to quote one of the greatest strategies of 20th century, Sir Winston Churchill, which actually stated, however beautiful the strategy, you should occasionally look at the results. So ladies and gentlemen, on this particular webinar, we're going to show you the results. But before we do that, I would like to make a bit more structurizing the information that we're about to share with you, because we are going to present you quite a lot of information. So before we do that, we would like to tell you in which classification we're about to present you this strategies. So first of all, we divided the strategies into groups. The group number one refers to content which is specific, which is non-geometric. The latter one is geometric. I think that you're pretty more familiar with the geometric part, especially for the majority of the audience. However, there is also a non-geometric content, like different kind of materials, paints, structural layers, which we'll also cover during this webinar. When it comes to geometric, we went down below and subdivided further. So when it comes to subdivision of the geometric part, we came up with two main approaches. The first approach is that we're using the same content for all platforms. We're focusing, of course, on Revit and ArchiCAD today, but some of the strategies can also work with other platforms like Allplan or Vectorworks. But let's focus on the Revit and ArchiCAD on this particular episode. The latter subcategory is individual. So this strategies actually prepares individual libraries, native files for each and every platform. But this is not the end. We decided to subdivide it further. So the common strategy was divided in two next subcategories. One is reused, and the other is custom. The reused is when we're actually reusing the existing, let's say, BIM, in this case, CAD files, which in most cases were used for the fabrication. They were created in some sort of a CAD systems like Inventor, SolidWorks, Solid Edge, Creo, name it. And it's possible to convert them into some interoperability formats like STEP or 3D DWG, which later on, through, let's say, some intermediate conversion, can be converted to BIM formats. I also mentioned about the Inventor, but we decided to cover Inventor as a separate strategy, and I will tell you why later on, not to bore you with this information when we're talking about the classification. The other subcategory is custom one. So the custom is when you're planning to prepare a custom model, custom content, custom object, especially for the purpose of BIM, but you don't want it to prepare them in both platform Revit and ArchiCAD independently, but you would like to have a single file. So this strategy, actually, we came up with two, let's say, types of strategies for the custom one. The first one refers to creating a native file, which later on is converted to both Revit and ArchiCAD. And for this purpose, we used Rhino. And the other strategy is when we're starting with Revit, because ArchiCAD also provides some sort of a plugin which allows us to convert the Revit geometry into ArchiCAD. It's called RVT RFA Geometry Exchange, and we will also cover this topic. I think that we could also cover the third option for creating a custom common content, but due to the fact that we have a pretty limited amount of time, and these options usually works on the SaaS proprietary services, we decided to skip that part during this event. When it comes to the individual part, we also divided that into subgroups. So the first subgroup refers to something which we call the generic content. You can consider that as a templates, which can be reutilized across several manufacturers as long as the manufacturer are capable of providing a coherent, cohesive data, which then can steer both the geometry and the data of that kind of template. As an example, we will use the eTMMC standard, which simplifies us and structuralizes us this set of information. And last but not least, I think that the most obvious for most of you is to prepare a custom content for each and every strategy, for each and every platform. So independent file for Revit and the independent file for ArchiCAD. So as a result, we came up with 7 scenarios. But to be honest, we see that as 5 different strategies, where 2 of them are available in, let's say, 2 variants. So we had an issue with naming the webinar, whether we should name it 7 strategies or 5 strategies. So we decided to meet in a halfway and call it 6 strategies, because we have 5 strategies, but 2 of them we considered as 1.5. Okay, so right now we're going to present you the first strategy, which will be followed by the next one. So S1, S2, S2A, S3, and so on and so on. And each strategy will first be presented by Adam, and later on follow up by our experts. So Adam, I'm handing you over the stage, and you can start with the non-geometric strategy.
Okay, thank you very much, Marcin. As we heard, we have plenty of scenarios to show today. As Marcin said, we used hundreds of hours to prepare it, but we did it. However, I'm pretty sure that you are more interested in the comparison of that scenarios. So let's go quickly through the intro. In the middle, we have the BIM Streamer platform, which allows to combine the models and the data. And in the first scenario, however, we don't have geometry. As Rafał told me yesterday, manufacturers very often call it stuff. So in this example, as an input data, we have just the Excel with the data. And as a result, we have the dedicated RTE file in Revit with created materials, for ArchiCAD with materials. Marcin, can you start the movie, please?
Okay, I will.
Okay, let's play it. As this is first scenario, we will start it with presenting the whole process in the BIM streamer. So we select the families for the synchronization. We can see they have been queued and synchronized. When they are finished, we are accepting them and publish to the online library. We are selecting the appropriate channel, accept, and now we are on the online library and we are selecting the synchronized families and we are adding them to the basket. In the basket, we are selecting the Revit and ArchiCAD files for download. And now we can see the created PLN file in ArchiCAD. And soon we will open the attributes for the created materials, and we will compare them with the data we have in our Excel sheet. And you can see that the plasterboard, this is the material 1 which was created. And now we are scrolling. Here are the attributes in the Excel sheet and the attributes in ArchiCAD. And the second material, insulation wool, and the injected attributes for that material. Now let's skip to the Revit. We are scrolling through the attributes in the Revit, and soon we will see the materials. Yeah, here we have the materials in Revit. Plasterboard and the materials that the attributes that have been updated. And the second material, insulated wool, and the updated materials.
Adam, if you could also clarify to our audience what the synchronization is, because for some of them it might not be so obvious.
Synchronization is the process in BIM Streamer which creates the BIM files. And usually it takes the master models in Revit or ArchiCAD or both, and the data from some kind of source. In this example, the source of the data is Excel sheet. However, as I said, in this example, we didn't have the models as an input parameter because we have been just creating the materials which does not require it.
Okay, so I think that this was the presentation of the strategy number 1, so the S1, and I think that it should be followed by some sort of a recap from our experts. So I will ask you, maybe Rafał, if you could put more light on the findings from this particular strategy.
Yeah, sure. So actually, the first strategy for non-geometric products, clearly the geometry input is not required, so that's a big plus. Only the information about a product is actually needed to create such BIM content, and it's a relatively quick solution. Some of the drawbacks, actually the big one, is that it is very limited to a certain type of product. And which product is it? As Adam also mentioned, for me, this kind of strategy is very much applicable to everything that we could consider to be stuff, right? Materials. Think about it as paint or insulation, roofing, and etc. This strategy is not very good for things that would be products. So elements that I would consider to be things. Think about a door, a lighting fixture. So basically, when we're talking about the strategy number 1, I think it's worth to remember that it's a good one for everything that we measure in either buckets, liters, and bags. And it's not very good for things that we measure as either linear meters or pieces.
Okay, thanks for explanation, Rafał. I think that we can move on to strategy number 2. So Adam, the stage is yours again.
Okay, let's go through the scenario number 2 quite quickly. In this example, as an input file, we have existing step file. And what we can do with such file is to convert it, for example, through the Rhino to SAT and 3DM files, which can be used as an input models for Revit and ArchiCAD. SAT files might be converted automatically in Revit to RFA during the synchronization process. However, there might be some kind of issues during such conversion. So we recommend to do this conversion manually and prepare this RFA manually just to check and be sure that the result master model in Revit is good enough. And similar to the other scenarios, we will have the result files in Revit and ArchiCAD. In this example, it will be RFA and GSM. Marcin, if I can ask you to start the movie number 2.
I'm trying right now. Give me a sec.
Let's start movie number 2. We can see the Rhino tool, and we are opening the step file in this tool, and we'll convert it to 3DM. Before the conversion, we can reduce the number of polygons to make the created master model a little bit lighter. And such created files we are using for the synchronization. Now we are jumped to the check the result file after the synchronization, and we are checking the attributes in Excel file, and you can see that attributes in ArchiCAD was injected, and now we are comparing the Revit file, and you can see that attributes have been injected to the dedicated sections in Revit as well. I think that's all. We can get back to the presentation.
Okay, so I think that was more like the presentation of the strategy S2, and maybe now I would like to ask for a comment of Grzegorz, if you could put a bit more light on this strategy.
Yes, well, this strategy, it's we can say that using the step files, which are typically used as an exchange format, and they are good for covering many like exchange between designing platforms, and in some way this is the first format when the manufacturer decides to create the BIM content. This is the first asset they have from their design department, and very often when we start to talk about creating BIM content, I can hear that, okay, we have 3D files, can we use them? And the step file is the solution that could be this first step with creating this content. So it is possible to create it in short time. We can create the first BIM content, so there's no need to remodel it. But the problem with this approach, as well as with 3D DWG files, it's that we cannot do much about parameterization of such models. And other thing is the limitation. Very often those files are very complicated, since they are fabrication models. They have many construction and structural elements that are irrelevant for from point of view of BIM authoring tool user. So very often when you create Revit family or ArchiCAD library part, it appears that it's very heavy, might be as heavy as half of the whole project. The other thing with the limitation is that, as I said, we cannot do much about parameterizing this, except of simple material changing or turning on or off some part of geometry. But we have to do it either in some middleware or, well, directly in ArchiCAD. But anyway, we cannot directly import it to BIM authoring tool. We need a middleware software for that. So it's good to be used for the object types like furnitures and interior equipment, which are in fact static, and the only parameterizing that is relevant in those cases are changing materials and showing on and off some part of elements. But mostly the furniture is that type of object that we got separate types, and we don't need to like stretch them or have any other functionality. And definitely these elements are not very good. Of course, everything can be used as anything else, but we are talking about the best solution, and it doesn't fit well for map components, especially because with the map models, it's important to have really lightweight models. And of course, there will be no interactive connection points either in ArchiCAD or in Revit platform. And also, as I said, since there are no parameterization and interactivity with these objects, it's not good for elements like a structural framing, where you would like to use one element that just varies, that got some parameters that changes the angles or the shape to fit the design. So yeah, basically furniture and interior equipment, or it can be used as well. It's not written here, but can be used as a reference model for creating new simplified models.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think that we need to move forward a bit, because we are already behind the schedule and we have plenty of other strategy to present. So, Adam, I think that we can present the next strategy. If you could proceed with the introduction.
Okay, in the next scenario, we have the inventor file as an input, existing IAM file, and we can use inventor to convert it to Revit. And this scenario will cover only the Revit case. So we are converting the IAM to RFA, and as a result, we have the RFA with injected data. Yeah, here you can see the inventor, and we are opening the existing IAM file in inventor. We are checking some settings and options, and we can export this file to ADSK format, which is the internal Autodesk format, which is allowed to be open in any Autodesk tool. So this ADSK may be open in Revit and saved as RFA file. And such created RFA file is used as the master model in the synchronization process. Yeah, here we can see that still the file is saving. Some warning. And now we are opening the created file, and we will be checking the attributes in a moment. Yeah, here are the attributes that are in Excel file, and you can see that they are already injected in the final Revit file. That's all for the demo for scenario 2A. I think we can go to the
So maybe before we continue with the summary of S2A, we have several questions that maybe we should ask from the audience. So the question number one referred the ISO 23386. So as I mentioned within the chat window, that we will cover the data dictionaries and data templates within the next webinar, which covers the BSDD topic. When it comes to another question related with the STEP and the ETMMC, I think that it was already answered by one of the participants that the step after conversion is non-parametric. So the ETMMC will not work with STEP. Maybe it makes more sense to extract the data from STEP and inject it in the MC compliant data model, which we'll cover in one of the next strategies. The next question is whether the BIM streamer provide the conversion into back office from so right now is not necessarily. In general, BIM streamer is connected to external tools. So the answer is yes, because both Revit and and ArchiCAD supports conversion from either a free DM or from SAT, which can both be generated from Rhino. What about SolidWorks to Revit? When it comes to SolidWorks to Revit, go through steps. So strategy number 2. The injected attributes from the datasheet have to have the good parameter types for convert unit values. For example, in general, you need to provide the unit. You need to provide the value. Based on that, we are able to figure out which numbers should be provided. So the IM to RVT you can convert using Autoday. Do you need special software to do that? In general, if you would like to convert IM to RVT, you need to go through the Sky and then open it within Revit. I think that maybe the next questions we will answer in the sometime later, because we won't be able to present you the rest. So, Rafał, please go ahead.
Sure. So this strategy is actually quite good for anyone who is anyways using Inventor for product development as a R&D. Of course, it's a quite fast content preparation. It's definitely a better migration to an RFA format than the previous strategy that we saw from STEP. It's quite intuitive for any experienced Inventor user, and it also offers us a certain bounding box creation, so simplification of the geometry to a lower level of detail that might be required. But of course, this is only a strategy that's first of all good if we have the source model from Inventor, and if our end product is supposed to be the Revit family. So after all, I think it's a pretty good strategy for elements such as furniture, interior equipment, some selected MEP terminals, so maybe an HVAC stove, a pump, and lightly detailed static objects, but it's not particularly good for parametric MEP components, facades, roofing, structural framing elements.
Okay, thank you, Rafał, for your explanation. Adam, if you could proceed to the next strategy.
Okay, the next strategy is strategy number 3. And here we are using the existing Rhino files, 3DM. In this case, 3DM can be used for ArchiCAD out of the box, because this format can be open in ArchiCAD. However, it's good to use Rhino to reduce number of polygons to have the file lighter. To use it in Revit, we need to convert the 3DM format to the format that can be open in Revit tool, and this format is SAT. Actually, we show it in the scenario number 2, where we have been converting from STEP also through the Rhino. And as a result, here we will have also Revit and GSM file. Marcin, if you can play me the movie number, number S3. Let's start it. This is the screen you have already seen, the Rhino tool. And yeah, we are opening the existing 3DM file. Sorry, and we are reducing the number of polygons to have the file a little bit lighter. And then we have saved it to 3DM for ArchiCAD and SAT for Revit. And now we are checking the results file and the attributes if they were injected. So here we can see the ArchiCAD and the injected attributes for the section data. And here is the Revit file and the attributes injected to Revit to the section data. And I think we can go to the pros and cons.
All right, so maybe this time I will ask Grzegorz if you could put more light on the pros and cons or on this particular Rhino strategy.
Well, this case is interesting from point of view of creating multi-platform libraries, since we have one modeling tool, and then we can spread it to different BIM authoring tools.
Could you explain what you mean by BIM authoring tools? Because it might not be for the audience.
By BIM authoring tools, I mean Revit, ArchiCAD, and Allplan, and other that we don't mention in this webinar. But this solution, when we use this Rhino as a modeling tool, it allows us to then convert it to any other specific BIM authoring tools. So this solution is very convenient, and Rhino as a modeling tool got many options of input and output formats. So that's why we use it in this previous case, that we can read step files or DWG and output them. And also, because it has the scripting environment, it allows us to create simple yet functional scripts that can automate the process of preparing models for exporting to ArchiCAD or to Revit. So in this case, for example, we can create a simple LOD models like bounding boxes that can then in BIM authoring tools, they can be used as options for displaying model. But this parameterizing is as well, it's shortened only to this basic things like changing materials or showing on and off visibility of components, or creating this low detail simple versions of these models. And when we would like to have more parameterized models, we have to do it in BIM authoring tool. So we can export components, but in Rhino itself, we cannot just do much with parameterizing. But what is important, we can control level of detail and density of model, of 3D model. So this is important, to have a lightweight library. And so it fits to this typical library object like furniture, interior equipment. But also, since Rhino is the models you create in Rhino are based on surfaces called NURBS, like non-uniform rational splines. This way of creating models allow us to create nice shapes that then can be converted to polygons. So it's good for creating a smooth objects like sanitary things, sanitary equipment. But again, with this, it's not good for MEP components, since they need some simple elements. And also for the structure framing, in like parameterized structure of framing. And that's why rather we'll get the static objects out of this.
Okay, thank you, Grzegorz, for this explanation. Adam, if we could proceed to strategy number 4 or 3A, sorry.
3A, yes.
3A, yeah.
Strategy number S3A is just for ArchiCAD. The existing model is RFA file, and it is possible to convert it to GSM. ArchiCAD has plugin that allows to open existing Revit file and convert it to GSM. The cons of such solution is that we are frozen the geometry. We get the block that we can change the size of this element. So actually, this order of conversion is not the one that is desired, because we are making the conversion before the synchronization process, so before the injection of the data and updating the geometry. So as a result, we will get the GSM file which has updated the attributes, but the block will have the previous sizes. Hopefully in the future, ArchiCAD will provide the API for this conversion, and the better order to do it will be to convert the existing RFA after the synchronization. So when we update the geometry of the RFA file and the injection, then we will convert it to GSM, and the existing GSM will still be a block, but it will be already updated. So the size will be correct. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's not yet possible. Hopefully, it will be provided soon. We're in contact with ArchiSpace developers and
with Graphisoft developers.
Graphisoft developers, and hopefully they will do it quite quickly. Marcin, if you can, here is the movie. Let's start it.
Don't ask how I knew that, which movie I should play.
Yeah, here you can see that the converted master model in ArchiCAD, and the second object is after the synchronization. The first one had just the ETIM-MC attributes that were in the master Revit model, and here in the result ArchiCAD file, you will be able to see. You can see at the moment we have the two sections: ETIM-MC parameters, which will be updated, and additional ETIM parameters, which were injected during the synchronization process.
Okay, shall we proceed to the summary, or you would like to present something else?
Yeah, now there were the tab has been clicked, so we can see the attributes in ArchiCAD, and now we can go to the pros and cons.
Okay, so I think that the best person to answer for the pros and cons of the ArchiCAD converter is actually Grzegorz, our ArchiCAD expert. Grzesiek, if you could put more light on that.
Yes, this RVT RFI Geometry Exchange plugin add-on for ArchiCAD mainly is its functionality is to give possibility to designers to link RVT models of whole buildings. So you can link the model and see the entities like walls, slabs, and compare it to your design in ArchiCAD. But also it got this option to convert RFA, the family file format, Revit family, to GSM ArchiCAD objects. And this solution gives the possibility of quick creation of ArchiCAD library in the case when manufacturer already has a Revit library. But also the most important thing, because the objects we can create by this, they are completely static. We can only have just control on the like materials, but we cannot change, even if those RFA files are parameterized, and you can change geometry. The exchange file, this GSM file, will get static and will have only one primary type and geometry. So for that, it's not convenient to use it when you have a lot of options and you would like to have those options in ArchiCAD file. You would have to create several single Revit objects and export them to have those options in ArchiCAD. Also, if you have MEP objects families in Revit, well, you will get those informations, but you will lost the connection point, so you cannot use it as a component for map modeler. But what is good with this definitely is this, that you can get this metadata. If you have those metadata parameters in Revit family, you will have them in ArchiCAD after this export. So it's good again as a static object. So just furniture, equipment. Because we have three options of importing elements, we can import as objects, doors, and windows. So we can use, for example, ArchiCAD will recognize it as a door or window if we import it in this way. So as a simple geometry, we could use it in this case. And also as if we got some curtain wall panels, we can then use it, but by changing in ArchiCAD its type to curtain wall panel, and we can use it in ArchiCAD in this way. So definitely it's not it will not work as a map component, as an active map component, and also will not have this interactivity as a structural framing.
Okay, thank you, Grzegorz, for this summary. Adam, we need to speed up because we have 10 minutes left. Please go ahead with the next strategy.
Okay, the next strategy, generate content. We have created the generate content in RFA and in Revit and ArchiCAD. Generate content based on ETIM-MC classification. And as a result, after the synchronization, we have these master models with updated geometry and injected additional ETIM attributes. Marcin, if you can start the movie, please. Let's start it. Yes, here we can see the master model with default attributes, and now the result one with we have plenty of ETIM attributes that we have injected out there, and you can see the sections in these ArchiCAD files, ETIM, MC, and ETIM. And when we will open them, you can see all of this data which are just selected in the Excel. Maybe I will fast it a little bit. Yeah, here are those attributes and the ETIM one. And now in Revit, let's speed up. Yeah, here are the attributes for Revit. And Marcin, please start the movie for A.
Okay.
Yeah, this is maybe not exactly connected with the scenarios, but we think that it might be interesting for you, that it's possible also to create drawings with dimensions. And yeah, not only on the PNG, but also in DWG files. And these, for example, are created DWG files with dimensions. So anything dimension you might need can be prepared, and such files can be created automatically during the synchronization process. And I think we can go to the scenario number 5, Marcin.
Okay, maybe before we do that, I will
pros and cons. Yes,
pros and cons. But maybe before we do that, I will answer the questions from the audience. So, does the eTeamMC allows for complex geometry with parametrics, or is just for creating simple object? Okay, so in general, the eTeamMC has, I think, something around over 300 different product classes, which are being used for most typical cases. However, the eTeamMC itself is presented here as an example, because if you need something more sophisticated, you can always create a dedicated content, dedicated object with more sophisticated geometry settings, which later on you can steer it with the parameters from the outside. So the eTeamMC gives you the possibility to standardize the content and reuse the content across several manufacturers. But if it's not suitable for you, you need to have something more sophisticated. Then you can either extend the generic content or create a new one from scratch. But let's go back to the summary of the S4, and for the comment, I would like to ask Rafał.
Sure, I actually think that my summary will also answer Matt's question. The big pro is that really it's optimized for specific software like Revit or ArchiCAD. The time for content creation is reduced, and the library utilization is relatively proven. But of course, it does not give us many possibilities to create unique content. The best results with this approach are for a relatively low level of detail, and in my opinion, there is quite a long process of data collection on the manufacturer's side to collect the data in the needed structured format. So overall, I think this approach can work for highly standardized products, some of the MEP components like a radiator that we just saw, and a lot of commodity products. But I don't think it's a very good way to go with either high level of detail elements like furniture or non-standard products. So for example, if we have a window with a custom frame, most likely eTeamMC does not yet have a particular class that could deal with it. Of course, these approaches are a growing approach, and maybe one day it will cover all the different scenarios. But in the meantime, the kind of non-standard products are quite difficult to create as BIM content using the strategy S4.
Okay, thank you, Rafał, for the explanation. Adam, I think that we have the last strategy. We have 6 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's go through the scenario number 5. According from the BIM streamer point of view, scenario number 5, it's not different from scenario number 4 at all, because we have the same files as an intro, and GSM and the data in Excel sheet, and the same result, RFA and GSM. So this is completely the same from BIM streamer point of view. Marcin, if you can run the movie.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Revit 1. Maybe I will speed it up because this is just the comparison of the attributes. So here is the data in the Excel. And here we can see the injected attributes in Revit. And we can play the movie for ArchiCAD because we have different product. Yeah, let's fire it. Yeah, and we can see that the attributes have been updated. Here we have Excel with values, and here you can see that the values in ArchiCAD have been updated as well.
Okay, thank you. So maybe for this comment, due to the fact that we're creating a custom content for each and every platform, maybe I would ask both of our experts. So maybe Rafał, if you can start.
So I think this is the strategy that's quite the most common strategy for all of the manufacturers. That's something that we see quite often. It is highly optimized for a specific software environment because we are starting in Revit to end up in Revit, or in ArchiCAD to end up in ArchiCAD. It, of course, has the highest possible adaptability. But of course, it creates a situation where it takes a little bit longer. It often might cost a bit more money to generate. The automation is a little bit reduced, and just like everything that we do customized, of course, there is a slightly higher probability of having bugs or inserting mistakes into the content than when using a generic content that gets fed by data collected in a standard in the standard way. I'll give it to Grzegorz now to say what is it good for and what is it not good for.
Yeah, well, in fact, it's something that it's good for everything, since we start in native environment, and either Revit family creation and create GSM objects in ArchiCAD. When you start from scratch, you can do anything. So even those simple elements that we just mentioned in previous scenarios can be done natively and will work very well. But of course, as was mentioned, this process, since it started from scratch, it takes more time. So it's better to think about this solution when we have complex systems to present as a BIM content. So I can imagine like a panel system for cladding, or maybe some gutter, roof guttering piping system, or complex doors and windows. This kind of elements, they're supposed to be done in this scenario. So we have a good control on every aspect of the object. And also, if we need more functionalities, more scheduling options at the end. Another thing is that either Revit and ArchiCAD allows us to connect with Dynamo or Grasshopper parametric algorithmic design, and those families or GSM objects, they can be used and controlled by those software, I mean Grasshopper and Dynamo. But in order to work well with those algorithmic software, they need to be created from scratch. So this is good as a tool, and we call it somehow in-house tool, because very often this type of objects are created for architectural or structural practice bureaus, where they need specific very specific in function objects. So yes, it's for everything, but it's good for complex elements mostly.
Before we go to question and answers, I would like to invite you for our next webinar at 9th of June. Which will be about which we will do with BSDD.
So the next webinar will take place at the mid of June, just before the vacation. Our guest would be the Frederick Grant, the managing director of Building Smart France, and also the project manager of the BSDD. Which I definitely invite you to visit the webinar. I will paste you the link within the chat window within a second, so definitely check that out. We would be happy to visit you on our next episode. So right now I think that we have still some question and answers that probably you have and which we would be happy to answer. So please go ahead, and we can afterwards summarize our event. So are there any questions? Okay, I see that someone is typing something.
In the meantime, I saw one comment from Arnold saying that the installer wants light models, low LOD, and manufacturers prefer higher LOD. Well, since I'm representing a manufacturer, I can also talk a bit about this. I think manufacturers historically in the past wanted the higher LOD because maybe the understanding of how these elements are being used was not yet high enough. Now we, as all manufacturers, are understanding that we need to provide the right LOD at the right time, meaning that any kind of BIM content we create using any of the strategies needs to be such that it functions properly, it works, and doesn't explode the engineer's project. And that's one of the challenges that we are facing right now, and one of the things that we as manufacturers are definitely trying to overcome, because indeed the content from the past has created a situation where there is a bit of lack of trust in the content that comes from us, and now it's our job to win this trust back with our customers, and this is one of the things that at least my company, and I'm sure all the other manufacturing companies, are striving to earn this trust back, so that our customers again want to use our content if they have a specific need for it.
Okay, another question, maybe more technical one. Whether the recording will be available later on. Of course, each and every webinar session is being recorded, and we will release this recording from this current session within 4 weeks from the live event. If you are interested in the previous episode of our BIM for Manufacturers series, like I mentioned at the very beginning of the webinar, I definitely invite you to check our site, bimstreamer.com, navigate to Knowledge Webinars to see the other episodes. Are there any other questions? Okay, I think that we can, in that case, wrap up. So just at the very end, I would like to thank both Grzegorz for preparing us the ArchiCAD content for this session, and also Piotr, who is not with us today, but he was mainly responsible for preparing the content in Revit. And at the very end, I would also like to thank all our guests. So thank you, Rafał, thank you, Grzegorz, thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Marcin.
Thank you very much.
And I hope to see you on the next episode of the BIM for Manufacturers series. Thank you very much. Ciao.
Bye-bye.